Naalala ko tuloy yung Michael V na parody song. Oh, 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 mapapabakutan. Tawa ako dun sa parody song bathroom. When Eric comes back, can you pray for us? Very good pala. I think Kenny live. When John comes back. Alam mo yung pag umaalis si ano, nang bumalik si John, umalis ka. Bumalik ka, wala si John. Oo. Yung song ni ano, Michael V ng Bathroom Dance. Merong part sa interlude. Binabasa niya, sinasabi niya yung mga things na kinain niya kaya sa napabathroom dance. So, nakakatawa kasi, Kokoy, ice cream, candy, laing, siopaw, beer, gravy. And it's done. Go done. Can you pray for us? So I started a 1 minute timer. Now it's 40 seconds.
Current group.
Actually, I don't remember the redhead, but you mentioned it. Hey guys, we're live.
We
Welcome
are
to
live.
another
Hello.
evening with Level Up Geek Night, our nightly, not nightly, our monthly
At the-
podcast where we talk about all geeky things and how we relate it to our walks of faith in life. My name is John, and I'm your Christian geek, and I am joined by our band of what? Band of geeks.
Band of friends.
Our-
Band of geeks.
Our party for this evening. So
Party of dwarves, joke.
Party of dwarves.
Oh,
Even though there are only 4 of us.
that's true. Well,
So tonight,
Half-cam yung iba.
tonight we have, of course, our brand ambassador, Vel.
Pwede na.
Say hi, Vel.
we'll
Hi,
workshop
everyone.
your nickname at some point.
Yes.
our resident Cebuana cosplayer. Hi, Eri.
Hi.
And then we have, of course, our CEO, COO, child of owner, our boss man,
I do like the
John G.
boss man thing. Boss man.
Say hi, John.
Hello, hi John.
So, for tonight, by the way, just so you know, we are available on both Facebook and on YouTube. Pero wala pang nanonood sa YouTube.
At the moment.
Share din natin yung YouTube.
Sabi ni Vince, party of dwarves daw tayo. I will accept that. I will accept that.
Or bandits. Just saying. Bandits.
Which, by the way, I have a story about the bandits. Because
Which we will
coincidentally,
share.
there were 7 bandits as well.
It's
Mm-hmm.
true. There's some. Anyway, we will get into that in a bit.
So tonight, we are going to cover, and as if you've seen our poster tonight, look into Finding God in Snow White. Snow White, one of the most controversial Disney films that has to come out in a decade or so. Grabe yung controversy surrounding. But we're
There's
going
a
to
lot of
explore both the old movie and the new movie, some of the changes, and basically what we see as geeks and as Christians about it. You know, what our thoughts and opinions about it. So, with that being said, John G, take it away.
right. So as we usually have, we're gonna be following a just kind of a basic structure to guide our discussion, and as always, we start off with a bit of background, um, since our media of choice tonight is Snow White, specifically yung live action adaptation of the classic movie. So how do we get into it? So what is our background coming into it? And that's something I'd like to toss to the table as a whole.
Siguro the
So
question
ano yung
is,
background natin?
did we watch the original movie?
So yeah, that is one of the key points. So has everyone here tonight watched the original? When I say original, meaning the Disney animated film.
Oh, I forgot to mention before
I have. I think we all have.
Yes.
before Eri
But I haven't watched it in a really long time.
before Eri continues, I just want to say I forgot to mention that the reason we're going through Snow White is because it's also Women's Month. It's the last day of Women's Month, so we want to honor the women, strong and independent women, and all kinds of women, whether they're strong or independent or they want to be traditional. Doesn't matter. Women are women. We should celebrate them, right?
That's true.
Yes, exactly.
Amen. You can be soft girl or you can be tough girl. You know, there is room for a lot of kinds of women here.
Yes, amen.
So that said, which is leading us into the Snow White, because this is a has become, whether it is or not, it has become a movie which is distinctly centered around the portrayal of a woman, right? So from the title itself, diba, Snow White, it's about a lady, right? So the question is, what kind of lady? What is she doing? What is the character of this Snow White, and so on? And in the classic Disney movie, which, as Ari has confirmed, all of us have watched. So I guess yung question that I would like to point out is like, okay, given the classic Disney movie portrayal, anong klaseng person? What kind of person is Snow White? And then we'll move from there to how does it seem to have gotten in the current live action adaptation.
That being said, let's
Right?
start with the ladies.
Yes, I would like to start with the ladies. So, sino ba? Sino ba
Would you
youngest
like to
dito?
go first? I think Val is younger.
I think Belle is slightly younger.
Sorry na, guys. Sorry na.
By
Um,
not your fault.
yeah. So, I think,
Be proud.
it's been a while since I watched the original Snow White. But
Same, same.
from what I remember about it, I want to say that she's gentle and has this like innocence in her. Na
Mm-hmm.
parang she's like curious, ganyan. I mean, yeah, she's familiar with domestic work. I also want to say because I do have some thoughts about that too. Um, and yeah, parang I think overall, just someone who's very, very curious, very gentle, and has this like very loving nature about her. Na parang
Mm-hmm.
siyang almost like open to like a caretaking kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not saying that like the new movie doesn't portray that, but I do feel na um they leaned into the whole like women can lead kind
Mm-hmm.
of trope. So
Right.
parang instead of gentleness, it's more like and gentleness and then administrative task almost.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't know how to describe it. Pero para
It's
siyang
okay.
she's like someone that you would work with in a corporate setting na parang, let me just arrange everything for you so that all things are functional and
That's interesting.
working according to to
Okay,
your role.
I think
Parang
ano,
just just a minor thing there. Since Vel threw in the corporate, like, okay, if original cartoon Snow White was in a company or in a whatever, what kind of
Mhm.
title would she have versus the Snow White you have in the movie?
HR admin, baka ER.
I was gonna say,
Mhm.
like,
So
parang more like culture HR yung first movie.
the first,
Like,
meaning the
very,
original cartoon.
Original
yeah, the
cartoon.
original
Mhm.
cartoon.
Which,
Okay,
And
by the
then
way,
this
is
one,
1937, so it's almost
it's
100
almost,
years.
yeah.
it's about nine.
And then this new
80,
Yeah.
one,
80
I'd
some.
say, like, parang someone that you would work with in, like, finance or operations. Sorry, guys, I'm not
It's okay.
bashing people who work these roles. Like, parang, that's, like, just based on my experience working
Stereotypes.
in a
It's like
corporate setting. So, yeah,
stereotypical.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Gets naman.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
that also like happens because of like the culture of times. Like you said, this movie is almost 100 years old that we're talking about,
Mm.
right? But I think other than that, also when you brought up this question of who she would be in the company, I would say she wouldn't be old enough to be in the company in the first place because the original Snow White was a child.
Was like
Well,
15,
That's
I
yes.
think,
true.
14 or
I mean,
15.
character
And they
or
definitely aged
personality.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely aged her in the recent release, which also probably explains the difference in the kind of character she is because
Mm.
she was supposed to be like naive and innocent. That's something that should like you kind of expect of someone who is younger, and they aged her so she is expected to be more than what she was in the previous context. I would say.
Although I think one thing that I would say is that remember that the main theme, especially even in the old one, was she's the fairest of them all, right?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
fair did not necessarily talk about her beauty, but rather her character, her personality.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
but that they even that they changed the definition from the old movie to, I would say,
Yeah,
because in the old movie,
agree.
fair talked about her kindness, her compassion, while in the new movie it talked about more of things being justified, things should be right for all people. So there was like a
Mm.
transition away from the original idea of what is fair.
Hmm. Although it's an interesting take, but I will introduce that a little down the line because I'm also gonna
Mm-hmm.
start pulling later on down the line. I'm gonna start pulling a few things from the original, which is the Grimm's fairy tale
Gosh,
The
the
Grim,
story.
original, the
yeah.
Grimm fairy tale.
Yes,
And
which is
wouldn't
actually quite interesting as well
isn't
to
the
put there.
original Grimm fairy tale even more grim? I mean,
Yeah,
It is
I was
more
gonna say.
grim. It is more grim in how they dealt with the evil witch. It
Mm.
is not as grim in terms of how they handled Snow White. It's actually very ending. But anyway, so I don't know. Balik ba tayo kay Eri or
Yeah.
just to get her yung take mo like although we did the whole corporate thing, but the main idea
Mm-hmm.
is how do you see Snow White personality portrayal in the original cartoon versus the live adaptation?
Well, I mean, I think in the basis of marami naman, I agree with a lot of the things Val said, but in my opinion, there was a big focus, yun nga, like on softness, I guess I would put it, because she was supposed to be a child
Mm,
and she was younger than the portrayal. Because I wouldn't say the new Snow White isn't kind necessarily, but how kindness is portrayed is different. It has a lot of like softness to it. She's gentle, she's good at cleaning. It's a lot of like the
mm,
traditional female stereotypes compared to how that's translated in the modern medium and the modern adaptation of the
mm,
film. Yeah, I think that's really where the greatest like gap in difference is. I guess other than appearances, which is another thing that was somewhat controversial online as well. Like the original Fair Snow White was, they interpreted the skin as white as snow, hair as dark as ebony, lips as red as a rose, like quite
yes,
literally.
or
Mhm.
blood, depending on how you
Oh
want to take
yes,
it.
wasn't
Mm.
wasn't Blood the Grimm brothers?
This is the grim version, so they had to
Yeah,
make it a little
version.
more for
Yes.
Disney, right? As white as a rose. Yeah, correct.
Actually, most of the Disney fairy tales are like find the original version. Like, wow. Very grim.
It is true.
hmm
So,
Okay.
So how about you?
I guess for me,
so tayo,
um,
paano? Ikaw, John, go.
personally, because I grew up watching a lot of the don't remember much except that it was like it's like one of the shorter it's a pretty short it's fully animated film. It's quite short to most of the I actually like the original. For its time it made sense. And I can understand the idea to update it to more modern. I just don't like how the in so many changes for the setting that it feels like, you know, Snow White seems unrecognizable. Uh,
Mm,
so, and a lot of the stuff that I would say are not naman bad qualities, but parang a lot of the people, parang the people behind the movie were saying these are dated qualities. I think they're dated. I think there's just, you know, society now just doesn't look to it as much. I think these are good qualities: kindness, fairness,
mm,
compassion, being loving, being motherly. Because that's actually who Snow White was. She was kind of motherly even to the dwarves, right? She was that was her portrayal. Granted, I understand that there's this whole oh we shouldn't have traditional the traditional wife role is like it's so passe. But if a woman wants to be like that, why stop them, right? I mean,
hmm
so I think my point lang is that yes, from one of the few takeaways that I noticed in the new is I feel like they tried to do it with an agenda in a sense and wasn't really sure how they wanted to do it. Parang hindi clear or parang to a certain extent I feel like the writers were like forced to write something that they knew. We already have a story. You don't really need to rewrite it. It's just, we just need to update certain things to a modern setting, but you don't really need to yeah, but they changed a lot. It might not be obvious, but they changed a lot.
mm. Well, I think it is obvious that they changed a lot on my part. So, musical siya. Okay, so stepping back again, as has been already mentioned, the classic Snow White is a very traditional portrayal of a woman, fairy tale lady rather. So a lot of the soft, quote unquote, qualities of being a person in caring, kind, and you know, her working and caring for people, connecting with, and so on. And there's a point I want to raise here later on that it's a very interesting thing that the shift to the modern version um, was ideally to give her some more certain other traits which are not the standard soft traits associated with traditional and conservative females. So the updated one in the movie. So there was a lot of talk about the movie, which actually is our next um, how do you say our next section. So what are the stuff we've heard about coming into the movie, and what did we see in the movie itself? So I'll segue into that. Coming into the movie, we've heard a lot of the how do you say there was a lot of
Controversy.
I guess controversy is the way to say it. Like things about Snow White herself, the choice of actress, the storyline. So, what are the difference in the character? That's the first one. The actual characters in the story. There are differences in the plot lines. Um, there are difference in um, actually those three. I guess those were the main two things. So in the characters, Snow White herself, there are differences with her. The Queen, not so much. There was also some controversy regarding the Seven Dwarves and the addition of the additional characters, the bandits. So we know there was like some back and forth there, like the dwarves, the bandits. They're both seven, so I guess they kind of just created a way of integrating all that.
I have actually an
Um,
explanation for that. And I think I shared it to Eri. About the dwarves and the bandits because let's face it, this movie had so many issues from the start. First they casted Rachel Zegler, and honestly, I don't have a problem with Rachel Zegler. She's a really good singer, and I think, as an actress, she could still improve, but she's good. She's not a bad actress. Far from it. Um, Her portrayal in the movie, the reboot of West Side Story, was actually pretty good.
hmm,
My problem is from the beginning is that Disney has been doing this quite a lot lately. That they have been doing blind casting for their characters when it doesn't make sense. So, like for example, Little Mermaid, they casted a black actress for a story that is supposed to be Scandinavian, right? So, um, it doesn't make sense. And even some black people, black influencers have mentioned that we have stories about black mermaids. Why need to like take over the story of Little Mermaid? Why not just tell their own story? That makes sense. Um,
that's cool.
and in Snow White, they casted Rachel Zegler, who is Latina by descent, and she's not white. And the problem is not because, oh my gosh, they did not, if we place a white actress there, it's whitewashing. That's not the problem. The problem is by description of the story, even in the Brothers Grimm, she has skin as white. She's as pale as white as snow. Her skin is as white as snow. That alone to tell you that you're supposed to cast someone who has that kind of skin tone. So it doesn't, for me, it just doesn't make sense to do a blind casting for a character that is not. Why? I mean, the Evil Queen, for example, the Evil Queen, they could have casted a black actress or a person of color because there is no limit there in terms of in the original stories, etc. And it's possible, but it's nonsensical to cast someone that doesn't make exactly. And then with regard to the seven bandits and the seven dwarves, I think the problem there is that when they first run the like teasers for Snow White, the original plan was it was going to be Snow White and seven magical creatures of different diversities. So my thinking is
Yeah, that was one of the originals. Yeah.
my thinking is what they did was they casted the seven bandits that came out in the movie, and then when they got a lot of flack for it, they decided to rewrite their roles and then put back the seven dwarves. And since they didn't have time to cast and shoot the seven dwarves anymore, they just made them CGI. That's why it's so weird that you have seven dwarves and then equally there's seven bandits, and the seven bandits could have played the roles of the seven dwarves as well. It didn't have to be, they could have been interchangeable. So what happens now is this weird thing where the movie straddles between um uh magical and realism, and so it's like the movie doesn't know what it wants to be. And I think this is
Mhm.
something that also Eri mentioned, that it's like it's straddling in between those two things. It doesn't know what it wants to do.
Actually have a
Exactly.
problem
JB and I
with
were
the
having this
sorry.
conversation. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, because you were talking about the bandits and being like the poster children of inclusivity. So sorry. Basically, right? That's what
Yeah.
they basically are. But if you look at them, there is not one Asian person there. So I'm like, I don't know. As an Asian, I kind of have a problem with that. No, but diba? Parang if you're gonna be the champion of inclusivity, parang sama nyo na lahat. And then parang I also don't understand, like, diba, CG na nga yung dwarves. But there's this one dwarf, okay, in the movie. And parang I'm like, if you hired him, I'm pretty sure he has like maybe 10 other friends who can play the rest of the dwarves. And I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, I think Peter Dinklage spoke a
Yeah, he
bit
spoke up
about it.
again. He spoke up against the typecasting of dwarves,
Yeah.
and that got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
And
But the
funny enough,
thing
there's
is,
a
yeah, the thing is, this is literally the perfect role. Like, parang, that's what they are, diba? Parang I don't understand talaga the changes in that. So I think, like, parang in general, like, parang
And
inclusivity is a bit of a
so
hit
what
and miss
what
for
actually
me.
it
Like,
created
parang,
was
yeah.
a problem where we don't actually get to know the dwarves or the bandits properly in the movie because they're sharing
Yeah.
screen time. So you
Yeah.
get introduced like there's this scene where, sorry,
Like
spoiler
before,
alert, but
I
there's
was
a
gonna say
scene.
before we move into like character dev, can I talk more
right.
about the whole like difference, like the contrast of surrealism and fantasy in the film? So like we finish off that topic before we move on to like
Yeah, go on.
character development, because I
Into
feel like
the
that's an
yeah, because
expansive
I
topic
was
in itself.
introducing
Yeah.
the differences. So let's yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Because like say for example, I think when you pointed out the whole like there are bandits and there are dwarves, that in itself is to me like a clear line to see that the film is confused as to what its identity wants to be, because the dwarves are characters, right? But the dwarves are CGI and they look very like surreal, and yet like
Very
like you
CGI.
also have, yeah, it's very CGI, and then you also have like the humans. And yes, there's a way to marry the two. I mean, you have films like say for example Narnia, or like that are able to create characters that are kind of like a marriage of those, and it
Right.
synchronizes. But it
True.
felt
True.
like there was such a dissonance in this film, say for example even in comparison to other adaptations of Snow White that try to make it more progressive. Like you have like the Kristen, Kristen Stewart one,
Yeah,
is
the
it?
Snow White and the Huntsman.
Or even
Yeah.
just yeah.
Wait, that
Or
was
even like TV
okay.
versions of it, Mirror Mirror into the Woods, or sorry, no, Once Upon
Yeah.
a Time.
hmm
Yes, so like adaptations of Snow White that try to make her like more this like strong feminine character, but then it's very like they're able to make the magical more realistic. So you know that it's a more grounded take. It's a more like gritty in a sense. The film in a lot of ways tried to spin it more magical, right? It tried to stay more true to its source. Like you see that in in her dress. Her dress is more true to the source. You see
Right.
that in like the CGI animals. that it tries to make the world a lot more magical, and yet so to me that makes the honestly to me it made the bandits even seem
Out
more
of place.
weird because it's like yeah, out of place, because it tried to like make everything seem they tried to make everything seem so political and so strong, whatever, but it was so out of place in this world that tried to be more like the fairy tale. And like
Mm.
JP was even pointing out during that scene with I don't know how much of this is going to be spoilers now, but like the scene with the kiss, right? And like it looked so plain, like you were watching a rom com, and they didn't play up the magic of it, which is what the film seemed to want to do. But they didn't go the whole way for that. Like just be big and be magical and be like fantastical
Yeah.
to that extent. So it was like it felt very half baked in that, oh, we want to be gritty and like real, but also these elements are in play that are fantastical and yet they're not maximized.
Yeah, I get it. I think
At
that
all.
Like the
scene with
way
True
way
Love's
they fit
kiss.
together. You know.
Yeah,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
scene with the True
Mhm.
Love's kiss that she mentions. Like in my mind, I was like imagining when the prince kisses Snow White. There's
The not
like
prince. The not prince.
zoom. There's like gonna be like a
Yeah.
magical whatever because the curse was defeated through
Broken.
love,
Yeah.
etc., etc. And then no, it was just a simple kiss, and then she woke up. I'm like, okay, parang bitin.
Well, it's like yeah. So it suffers from again. So these are things. Bringing it back to our structure. These are things that we
Mhm.
were made aware of coming into the film. We knew that there was a lot of um, influences towards the direction of what happened in the movie because of like example with regards to the dwarves on Nagreklamo si the traditionalists were like what why are they bandits, we want dwarves, and then they're like okay we'll have dwarves, actual dwarves, and then Peter Dinklage speaks up like how are you gonna typecast dwarves, and they're like oh we have to pivot here. So it feels like the final product of the movie is the result of too much political or even you could say political or social sensitivity that
I
it
think
was you come up with a movie which was too responsive to too many different audiences that it doesn't quite satisfy any of them.
I agree with you in that. I remember I watched a video talking about the difference between this Snow White versus the three other Snow Whites that we've had in the past in this millennium. So we've had the Kristen Stewart Snow White and the Huntsman, where
Okay.
the way that they built up that character of Snow White, she wasn't strong and independent in the beginning, but then nor did she have any ambition of being Snow White, being a rebel leader. But because of her situation, her and everything, that no, we have to fight for the people, etc. So it feels like the story's not there's a natural progression in the storyline. The other one is the Once Upon a Time Snow White, where she had they introduced that Snow White, she has been living in the woods for quite some time. So you kind of understand why she's like a strong, independent woman because she's had to, no. And then there's the mirror version, the one with Julia Roberts. I keep forgetting the name of the actress there, that plays Snow White, and she's actually more of the traditional Snow White, but instead what they did was they made her like smarter. She outwitted the queen, etc. And in all of those
Lily
instances,
Collins.
Lily Collins. So they remade the Snow White in their versions of Snow White, and it worked mainly because they knew who the character was. They knew how it would fit in their grand story. Whereas this Snow White felt very forced from the beginning, that I have to be a strong, independent girl boss, and that and I guess there's also that expectation because Rachel Zegler herself kept ragging on the original animated movie and kept saying, she's no, she's independent, she's strong, and like that and that, and so it feels very forced and ham-fisted in a lot of ways that feels like it wasn't natural. The progression of her character wasn't natural, and the video was saying that it's been done before, and we are looking at the classic. So for those who are watching, um, who have seen the classic or are familiar with the classic, normally when you do new things to the classic, it still has that classic feel. So if you go back to movies like Aladdin, for example, or Cinderella, or even the Beauty and the Beast, even if there was lousy, it was it's the storylines. You'll notice it's still the classic storylines. They change it up a bit. They moved some. They made some characters, updated to the times, but it's still the classic story. This Snow White doesn't feel like it was the classic story. So it's like you really want to. Parang hindi nila alam. They didn't know what they wanted to do with this Snow White.
I have a
Yeah.
comparison for that. So it's a totally different film. But this feels like uh Justice League.
That's what.
Justice League. It feels
Justice
like the
League?
Justice
In
League.
what
Okay,
way?
so let me explain. So the Justice League by Snyder has all the whole dark tones, and then suddenly you brought in a different film director, and he Avengerized it. If you guys remember, so there were moments in the film of the Justice League na parang it feels like everything's dark and gloomy, but the story kind of feels like it was spliced in from something else. Because right, they had a lot of reshoots for it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is the kind of the same in that you can feel like the track of development is like, okay, original Snow White, we're gonna do totally different takes on it. Oh, it's getting bad feedback. Let's try to bring it back to the original.
Mm-mm,
But they
mm-mm.
didn't quite get it there because they already shot so much. It's like we gotta find a way to bring it back. So anyway, these are all of the external factors leading into the film
Mm-mm.
that we got.
Mhm.
Now, I'd like to look towards the film internally, like the film itself, the film that we got. What is your take on the
Mm.
actual film? Like just this, like we've been talking about a lot of like, oh, it became like this because of that, and I
Mhm.
felt like it came out this way. But let's dig a little deeper into what we actually viewed, what we actually got to see. What are the things we
Okay.
can take from it?
Spinning off from what John said earlier about like character development, like we were talking about how there were so many
Right.
characters in play that it felt like it was so hard to really connect with any one of them because not a lot of
Okay.
each character had screen time, right? Um, I also felt like a lot of what because well, I don't know if this was said yet, but I don't think the film is as bad as it is rated to be.
Yeah, it's not
But
that
I
bad.
felt like a lot of the problems with the film, like all boil back to um how do I say this? Like the words that really come from my head are and John and I had this conversation also. Snow White feels entitled in a lot of ways, and it's because in during the progression of the film, like it felt like there was no sense of, I guess, urgent circumstance that was implanted in the first place. So even when they're putting up a setting, yes, we see like a town that may seem like somewhat like simple, but you don't see a lot of what the evil queen is doing really, like making the people suffer. So even then, in terms of circumstance, the setting doesn't make it so that you feel the need for change so much, other than the
Mm,
queen is vain and she wants to be the fairest. Like that's most of where her evilness comes from. Like she's willing to eliminate anyone who the mirror says is fairer than her. Otherwise, you don't really see like the people in need. So
right.
Snow White coming into the circumstance where she feels like I need to do this for my people seems like it's coming out of nowhere from someone who hasn't also
Good point.
been given any circumstance for her to prove herself that she's capable of anything other than leading dwarves to clean their house. So so it's like, who is this person? How am I getting to know her? Yes, I know that okay, she is like she goes among her people. Her parents were charitable and kind in their time and she wants to be like them. Okay. But what is the current circumstance that makes it so that she definitely has to save these people because this queen is making it so that their lives are hard. And what can she do, or
Right.
what has she shown that she can do in order to make their lives better? Like, it feels like that is missing from the film as a whole, and so everything that she
Yeah.
does seems to come from a place of like, my parents were this and therefore I should be doing this for people because I know what's better for them.
So it comes out.
And I feel like it's that, yeah, it's that
Yeah.
tone that's carried throughout the film that then makes it so that you're like, you don't connect with the character.
Which is I would say that is not what she wants to bring back, is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily negative, right? And the problem is
Exactly.
the way they showed it. Because, like, example, there were token scenes that implied that the evil queen, so to speak, was making life hard on the people. Like, there are
Mm-hmm.
token background portrayals, but it doesn't feel very well developed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Partly because, well, in the original film, it was a very small dynamic. It was really just the Queen versus Snow White. But here, since they
Mm-hmm.
tried to expand things, and not again, not necessarily a negative thing, but the
Mm-hmm.
way they expanded it, they should have developed it better. So,
And I
like,
think
let's say
Exactly.
the evil
Exactly.
queen still focused on her vanity. That's fine, but they could have done it in a way that she's destroying the community to feed her vanity. That angle
Exactly.
it's basically, that is technically what they're saying. Oh, she's basically ruining the community to feed her own vanity.
yeah,
Yes,
and I
correct.
think
But how they showed it could have been
Mm-hmm.
made
actually I think
more.
that's the number one thing that I remember watching. If you guys are familiar with cinema therapy, the director there would always complain about, no, you don't say it, show it. You
Exactly.
show it in the film. Though you don't, because it was mentioned the way that it was done. It was it was like they showed Jonathan the what do you call this, stealing from the
The bandit.
kitchen, and then he was saying
Mm-hmm.
he was talking how bad it is out there. That's how we know it's bad, but we don't actually see it. We don't see like
Exactly.
people suffering, people dying from lack of food, people there was no contrast between the good life before and the bad life now under the queen. So except for
There
a
was
few
lack of
shots,
lack of
except for
context.
like a few shots where they look like they look like they're destitute, but it doesn't there wasn't enough establishing that this was the queen's fault, right? Because for all I know, this could be just that it's there's a famine. I don't know. So it lacked that storytelling, and
Yeah.
like I mentioned
But
earlier, going back as well to the character development, there was this one scene that felt you would if they developed the characters properly, it would make sense. But there was this one scene in the movie, and again, spoiler alert, where the dwarves and the bandits were dancing together. Snow White sat down, and then she was talking to the dwarven bandit, the bandit that's dwarf size, and said, "Oh, you and Mabel seem to be close," and I'm like, "Where did that come from?" It's like there was like
Oh,
no context for that except that they were dancing together, and you didn't actually see them dancing together until it was pointed out. I'm like, okay. So it loses its because they have this question, they had that scene, but it doesn't make sense because there was no development. We didn't see Snow White long enough with the bandits for her to actually form an opinion on each of the bandits. And then in the same manner, I feel like what they initially shot was her spending time with the bandits, and so that would have made sense. I feel like, because of the what do you call that,
the shuffle in
the
direction.
shuffle in
yeah.
direction, suddenly, they'll put that, no, but they needed that scene
Yeah.
only so that somebody could point out that, oh, what do you call this, that Jonathan was in love with her. That was the only reason she asked that question. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and on that point too, it's like there but the bandits were like wary of her, and then Jonathan vouches for her. There is no reason to believe that she's proven anything to or to gain these people's respect other than Jonathan vouches for her, so we trust her now.
Well, okay. Well, she does quote unquote go back for them, to allow them to
Yeah, but
escape.
by that time in that scene, she hasn't done that yet. So
It's
it's
the
just like
scene where
they just happen to trust her already because he
it's the
said
initial
so.
scene where uh they were hands up, and then they were telling, what are you doing with our leader, with our captain, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So it was then Jonathan vouches for her, and then they just okay. So
But when you think about it, like, I think that's where the dislike comes from, eh. Na parang, it's so half-cooked. Not even half-cooked, if I'm gonna be honest. Parang, sa sobrang daming disconnect, parang it's hard to be emotionally invested in any one of the characters, especially Snow White. Like, honestly, even with Jonathan, na parang his characters felt like decor. Like, alam mo yun, parang, you know what, for the sake of staying true to the story, let's just put this guy. So, parang yun, like, hindi ko din talaga, hindi ako emotionally invested sa kanya. Like, parang, even like, parang, the fact that, like, okay, kinis niya si Snow White, right? Parang, why? Like, parang, okay, you guys, you did a duet and you're in love,
Yeah.
So,
Actually,
so yun,
if
parang,
anything, I argue the opposite. It was more like, and JP also brought this. Why not keep him a prince? You know, like
mm,
especially these lines of thinking and this kind of progression would we find in a film that you expect to be Disneyfied. You know, expect it to be a fairy tale. You expect things to come easier to people because it's like a fairy tale. You know, but
mhm.
the film's internal logic contradicts in that way. So now you're like,
Hmm.
they tried to put in bandits, they tried to make it rough, they tried to not go with the prince stereotype, so it's a little more like, I don't know, political, or a little more like
Yeah.
there's a
And then
dynamic
another
between like
Socially.
problem
the
that I had
royalty. Yeah.
to, yeah,
actually,
So
like,
it's like
parang, yung mention ng dad ni Snow White, like, parang bakit biglang may teaser na, oh my gosh, he might be alive. And then parang they never, like, close the story on that. Like, parang,
oh
ewan ko, baka
Well,
ako lang
no,
yun, ah.
no,
But
they
like, at
actually
the
no,
end of
did
the
they
movie,
naman.
did
I'm like,
they
it's
did.
easy to
Mhm.
miss.
yeah,
It's easy to miss, but they actually
yeah.
did
So parang
They
if
did.
you're
close it.
someone who's like doesn't have the best attention span, parang you'd be like, what happened with the dad? Like, why would you mention it and then not give me some type of closure? But yeah,
Parang minention,
that's me
that's
and
the
my
problem,
attention
because
span.
it wasn't shown. So we didn't even see. I think there would have been a lot of
Yeah.
more emotional gravitas if we've seen that the dad died by the hands of the queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Pero ang
just
ginawa
says it.
nila,
She just says
she
it.
just says that she was responsible for killing the dad, and like that's it. Walang ano.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, thanks.
FYI.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they showed something like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Like parang biglang
Little
in a
flashback
forest
man
makita
lang or
flashback na parang
something.
Yeah.
the queen
Yeah,
killing the
yeah.
dad.
Mhm.
Like, there would have
Yeah,
been
and the thing they had, yeah, they had enough to do flashbacks of almost every other scene with him, except for the one that mattered the
that
most.
mattered.
Hmm.
Actually,
There were plot points. Yeah.
but
So
to be
yun.
fair to
Mhm.
the film,
Exactly.
it's not a bad film, because I've seen way worse films than Snow White. It's in a sense, I mean, if I'm just gonna rate it, that's as it is. It does have a clear storyline, although because Snow White, sometimes that's where the logic gets lost on you. But you have a princess locked up in a castle because of an evil queen. She runs away because she's about to be killed, saved by dwarves. She encounters her Prince Charming, who happens to be a bandit captain, and then in the end, the evil queen gets to her, but because of true love's kiss, she survives, and she gets her.
She
The evil queen gets her comeuppance. It's actually, if you think about it, it has a clear storyline, and if you're a kid you can actually still enjoy it. There was good singing. Rachel Zegler is actually a very good song as singer. And Waiting on a Wish, I like the song Waiting on a Wish. It's actually very memorable. Um, it just feels like for Disney, you expect a lot from it, and it didn't deliver. And so I don't want to say that it's a bad movie. It's an okay movie, but it wasn't a great movie. Parang it was far from being great. No? So parang it's okay.
Yeah.
You could play it on Disney Plus while in the background. I'd still enjoy it. I wouldn't have the same statement if let's say this Dragon Ball Evolution, which
Oh
by the
my
way
goodness.
has a higher IMDb score than Snow
Yeah,
White, which is stupid.
I
I
think
was
that
gonna
is
How,
a
say,
that score is undeserved. But anyway, Belle, you were saying.
like,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, parang if you can look past everything that they changed and just generalize the whole movie, ako personally, parang I feel like nothing much has changed. It's really just those specifics na parang, let's make this politically correct. And then parang that's where like parang okay, yun yung different. But like yun parang yeah, like she eats the apple, she falls asleep, she wakes up from a kiss, and then she's crowned like fairest of them all. Parang yung bottom line na bottom line talaga. Andun pa rin naman. Pero yun nga, it's really just, you
Right.
changed it so much that it's almost unrecognizable. Parang ganon vibes. Like,
Hmm.
Can
Well, I
I
have
ask how long is the movie's runtime in total?
Forgot actually.
Because honestly,
um
for me, it felt
30.
so short as a movie. But I also don't know if that's because it was actually short or because it felt so chop chop
Okay, so
and
this it's
there were
it's 1 hour and 49 minutes including credits. So let's say 1 hour
uh,
30,
and a half.
1 hour and a half, which is pretty short for a Disney film.
Yeah,
I
because
think
it did feel really short.
one of the things that it suffered from is the pacing was like they were jumping from scene to scene without really building up
Mm-hmm.
the drama between the characters. So a lot of times it feels like under normal circumstances the bonds there would be bonds created, shared experiences, etc. But it feels because it feels rushed. So it feels like the a lot of the emotional gravitas doesn't feel earned, or what should have been the emotional gravitas doesn't feel earned. So like for
Exactly.
example, Jonathan and Snow White's love story could have been developed a little bit more. So you don't see like when she finally wakes up from Jonathan's kiss. I didn't feel. I actually. It's funny because I was watching the movie and remembering Grumpy was more sad than Jonathan. Like
yeah, that's true.
so I'm like, that's so weird. The Grumpy's the one more
For
sad than
for
Jonathan.
comparison, just for comparison's sake, so the original animated film screen runtime was 83 minutes, and the live action runtime is 109 minutes. So it's increased by 26 minutes.
Funny.
26 minutes, yes. Considering the additional story beats that they added, 26 minutes
Seems
is
short.
not enough time to develop all those additional story beats. So I'm not saying that adding and updating the film is a wrong thing at all. It's not. It's just that, okay, the amount of screen time you developed it for, that additional
Mm.
26 minutes, that's not gonna, it's not gonna fly. Diba?
Yeah.
Parang,
Maybe
if you,
they need a director's cut.
yeah, I don't know if there's a director's cut or not, but you know, extended version or something.
I think
Yeah, I do
you're
agree
agree.
though
But
that
if you watch it
yes,
as
sorry,
it
go ahead.
is, if you will just watch the movie as it is, without any background, it's an okay film. Not bad.
It's
Not
it's an
bad. It's not a
you
bad film.
I would say it's a musical. As a musical, the musical sections are all very high quality, They're all very
Yes.
entertaining in their individual aspects. So, for example, Aladdin had its music. Snow White
Mhm.
has its music. I would say that the energy and the vibe of the musical performances in Snow White align more than the Aladdin one. Because Aladdin, you had like all the classic songs, and then you had Jasmine's song, which felt very modern pop.
Also a little
Whereas
bit
in the
out of
Snow White,
place.
it feels out of place, not because we want to recognize Jasmine. Like she had a lot of good stuff. Like everything was good. It's just that the the quality or the energy of the her song doesn't quite match the rest of the film, which is very classic 90s, 2000s, whatever. Um musical. So when you get to Snow White, however, I do want to give it its credit na Snow White, the
Mhm.
musical sections, even the new ones,
And I
do
think,
have a good tone
and no
to it.
offense,
So it
and
Yeah,
fits.
they do.
what actually I remember the most is Gal Gadot's performance, and I would say I really love the fact that she went all in, hamming up the evil queenness of the evil queen, and like in her performance that like what's the name of the song? I can't even remember the name of it, but basically her solo songs like my gosh, even those evil dancers, like the dancers, and like it's so it's so so ham. So hamon. Pero it's a nice level of I'm an evil queen and like uh, all is I think that her song was like all is fair for to the fairest of them all. And like does that role well. I thought so I don't understand what people are saying that she's doing a bad acting in it. So but
If anything, the song that I felt like was the most like how do you put this? I don't, I don't think the song was bad, but I think that the song where the Snow White and Jonathan, like the song that leads to them eventually like
Princess Problems. Is it
yeah.
Princess
No,
Problems?
I don't know if that was Princess Problems, because but if anything it was more
There was
like
another
I
one, I
like
think.
the song.
the
Ah,
one in
The
the
one
ano,
with
Love
the one
the
Nest.
that
one the
the one
fireflies.
yeah
The
yeah
one
the
they were
one that gets
dancing
cut
to.
by the yeah. It's like because Princess Problems is a cute flirty kind of
I
song,
like
like
Princess
it's like a,
Problems though.
yeah.
It was cute. It was
Yeah,
nice.
I
I was
love
like,
Princess
oh,
Problems. That other song, I don't remember what it is. The one with the fireflies and all that. It just seemed weird to me, like in terms of what it was trying to accomplish, because it felt like it was trying to do too many things. I wasn't quite sure. Like I get that it's supposed to be like the pinnacle of this is where they realize they're kind of in love, but I felt like hmm
It
nakukulangan
didn't
ako. Like
yeah, parang
it
kulang.
felt like it was trying to do too many things, that it wasn't like
She was
pushing
trying to
one
be
particular
tangled.
thing. Yeah, like I didn't feel like they're so in love from the song, which I felt like it was trying to accomplish. So I felt like lacking in terms of like its impact towards its intended
The
purpose.
name of the song is A Hand Meets.
mm, which I
So
guess
ganon.
honestly the love duet, I don't mind it, but again, as we've been saying, it feels like you get rewarded with something that needed more build up. Like there should have been
Exactly.
one more something before that happened. So,
Also I
so
think because my standard for bandit princess storyline what do you call it stories is Tangled.
Princess Bride? No, okay, no, Tangled.
So,
Okay.
oh my gosh, they are inevitably gonna try do a adaptation of Tangled. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but
but
anyway,
I've seen
They should do Princess Frog first before they do Tangled.
if they want to be
true.
because they have to do diversity they should do Tangle Princess Fog first. Just kidding.
But I don't know. I mean, with the current climb, they might want to do a white movie first. I don't know. We'll see. But that's
Oh,
reaching out
speaking,
already.
I realized that there's a connect there between the whole like realist versus fantasy Disney thing. It
Yes.
seemed like a lot of elements of this particular adaptation were trying to be faithful to the original. And so
Yeah.
in line with that kind of perspective, it felt more like, okay, if you want to be faithful to the original, you should stick to your guns and just be faithful to the original.
Exactly.
Instead of like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah. Like if
Yeah,
Since
you
they
and
want to
tried to
be
parang
like
if
drive
they
it,
wanna, yeah,
yeah.
if they wanna do a play on nostalgia, then talagang stick to the original
Yeah.
source, because that's how you get the people to be emotionally invested.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I
That
think
makes
Aladdin was a good compromise between sticking to the faithfulness of the original source while adding, because there were a little extra things like the
Mm.
Jasmine song. Although I didn't like that one, but I understood why it was there. So like, it was fine. It was, for me, it was fine. Like, you
I
want
can I
to
have
add
no
a
input on
little
Aladdin. I
bit.
haven't watched.
personally, I think the only one that was really bad. Well, I didn't really like the singing. So it felt,
Ah,
but
I don't know. I'm okay with Beauty and the Beast.
I'm okay with.
That's a different
I
You
that's a
think
say
different
that, but Beauty
perspective
and
though.
Beast is one of the most successful Disney adaptations in terms of box office.
we're talking about
There
the
is,
live
yes,
action one.
Yeah, the
yes,
live action one.
yes. The live
Yes,
action one
exactly. In
actually
terms of box
is
office, it's one of the
huge.
most successful ones.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
But I think, but actually it has more criticism than the Cinderella one. Critics
But
actually,
we're
critics
kind of,
actually,
yeah.
not just critics, people have more criticism for the Beauty and the Beast movie, Cinderella movie.
Well,
Hmm.
okay. So Disney's had a lot of live adaptations over time, and that might be a
Mm-hmm.
whole different topic if we want to talk
Yep.
sometime.
I
But I
I can
wanna,
talk about that because it's about
yeah,
my job too.
we can. So that's something we might have lined up later on in the year. So let's put a peg on that. So for now, let's get into like the final large chunk of our discussion, which is basically finding God in this movie. So what is there that we can actually learn from the film? So we've criticized it, we've discussed its merits. Is there anything that we as people can actually learn from the film? Are there any, the positive learning qualities as an adult and maybe even as a kid?
before we continue on with this, I noticed that we have a lot of
Okay.
um messages from our one viewer. Just kidding, Vince.
From our
Uy,
chief
Our
viewer.
grabe.
favorite viewing.
Well, sinabi niya sobrang hilaw nga daw yung movie Snow White. Agree talaga. Hilaw siya. I think if they decided to just sit down and revamp things, they should have just revamped the whole thing, not just like part. It feels like they revamped
Mm.
parts and parts. So now we have a mishmash of of a movie. Also sabi
Sabi
ni
niya, daming
Lesson
comment
na ni
ngayon lang
Vinson,
nagre-reply.
sabi ni Vince, also pick the proper avenue to voice your opinions. Which is true because nakakatawa kasi. I think with the movie, I think one of the things that hurt the movie as well, in the box office, is how it was promoted. Parang everybody was promoting the movie, but then we have Rachel Zegler constantly ragging on the original animated film, and then in the same breath she would say "Free Palestine." I'm like, it's so jarring. You don't know what she, and it's like sometimes she would do it right in front of Gal Gadot. I'm like, are you trying to trying to incite a war or something?
Which is, yeah, actually these are external factors nga, no? So
Mm.
I guess if you want to tackle them, si Gadot herself, sorry, I keep figuring out how do you pronounce it? Anyway,
There's a T sound. There's a T sound. Gal
Gadot,
Gadot.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a
So si
T-sound.
Gal Gadot also has some negative PR because she is pro-Israel, and Israel is getting a lot of negative PR overall. I mean, I'm not supporting her. It's just that it is understandable she is pro-Israel because she is, after all, ex-military. I mean, she is a Israeli
Defense
training sergeant.
Force. IDF. Yeah. But I think
Yes. So yeah.
yeah, but in the case of the difference is she doesn't talk about her opinions during the promotional tours. Doesn't
Right.
spout that out when she's promoting the film. She's just promoting the film. She even would actually
Mm.
Um,
mention
she has a segment in an
how
interview when she talks about it, but I think she was also asked in that interview about it. So
if you're
Right. She
asking
doesn't bring
give
it
her
up.
yeah, but
take what you
But you
will.
can't fault her on that. Eh. I mean, that's her nationality,
uh
man. Like,
but in the case kasi with Rachel Zegler, it's in the same breath of saying something like you should watch this movie. And oh, by the way, Free Palestine. So,
Mm.
and sometimes again in front of
unhinged lang
Gal Gadot, I'm like,
talaga.
Yeah.
that's
It's
not the right
so
time to say these things.
it's so young energy, so for lack of a term. I mean, people do that, right? Like they just throw stuff in
Yeah.
And I
something,
think
or
like
maybe young energy is not even the right term. But there's
and
certain types of people who will be just like, I'm gonna talk about something and just throw it in there.
and then it was so bad that was it the executive producer I think flew all the way to where Rachel Zegler is across the
Right, right.
country just to reprimand her on what she's been
New
doing.
York, right?
And then like when that came out, I'm like, wow, that they actually had to do that. It means that she was really getting out of hand. So, and it actually affected the way they even promoted the film. They had to scale down the promotions of the film because they had to basically firefight the problems that she was creating.
Yeah. So again, these are external factors and not helping.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Like me, I'm just like trying to like, what can you learn from that?
But sabi
I
ni
think in a lot of ways, yeah. Like we can say that, yeah, some people say separate your like politicism from your professional life, and I feel like that's true in a lot of spheres for a lot of people. But in another way, one could argue that everything is political, or like that like how do you put this?
Wait, alam
like
ko.
you should be
So
an activist in every aspect of your life. Like some people do forward that kind of ideology, and I feel like JB was also right in the idea and ideation that it's all about the right time and the right place and the proper management of particular things, which I think can
hmm,
be true in all aspects of our lives. It's like, say for example, when we talk about our faith, like a lot of people don't like having like religion shoved down their throats, and that is a criticism for a lot of people. That's why like people
mhm.
don't like, what was it, have a bad view on like the Mormons who like knock on your everyone's door and stuff like that. Like because
that's why there's the
people have a
meme.
preference as a
There's why there's the
the
always
meme.
the meme where have you heard of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Which comes up in a lot of things because people don't like it when you are in a state where you're just like say having coffee when you're at home then somebody knocks on your door and suddenly talks about it. It's so jarring.
Mhm.
There's
I would say in yeah. Sige, go ahead.
there's
Finish off.
there's a
Come on.
there's a time and place and and I think even in church if would be taught as look for the right opportunity. You don't just go spouting about Jesus because people are just going to shut you down if you do that.
I
Yeah,
okay.
it's the whole
So
idea that even as
hmm,
Christians we try to live, um we to live as Christians, to spread the good news in whatever ways we can, but at the same time that same idea of there's a time and a place and a how still is applicable to
hmm.
us. I think it's the way I
so
can put it.
so the verse I'm gonna throw in for that is actually found in Proverbs, because Proverbs is full of very practical life application situations, and depending on your translation, Proverbs 10:19 seems quite appropriate because it basically says that um paano ba yan? Let
Go
me
ahead and
try
read
and
it.
pull it. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. Basically, kung dada ka ng dada, you're probably gonna say something wrong. But if you're wise, you don't speak that much, which is also very applicable in social media, right? Like people are like
Exactly.
just
And
saying things all the time, and it's like, okay, there is a time and place to say things. So there is
there's
wisdom in knowing when to.
another passage. It's also in Proverbs that says there is life and death in the tongue, and those who enjoy it will eat it. Meaning to say, um, those who enjoy what they're saying, even if it's, they will eat, they will uh, encounter the consequences of their actions. They're not careful. So,
Mm.
dada ka nga ng dada, tapos hindi nadada mo, parang wala ng consciousness of how it's affecting other people. Then, you're going to end up with, what do you call this? Consequences of your actions. And I think right now, Rachel Zegler has been kind of, all that kryptonite from a lot of people. Nobody wants to touch her. A lot of, I don't think, I think a lot of studios don't want to touch her right now. So she's toxic in that regard. She didn't mind the way she was talking, and I don't know what her PR people were doing, not advising her, or maybe she wasn't even listening to her PR. Somebody said, like, this is a movie that affects a lot of people. It's not just her, not just Gal Gadot and the actors. It's everyone who worked on the film, from the
Yeah.
director to
And
the person that was carrying the bags. They're all
yeah, the
affected
comment
by.
kasi Vince about that. Yeah. Your job was to promote your film. And if you want to virtue flag, don't do it on the project where people work hard for it to be great.
Exactly.
Your bad, sabi.
Mm.
Can I just
Again,
add on to like what you
go.
guys are saying? Kasi parang I like the direction that you guys are saying na parang um it's really about conduct, right? And I think it's kind of the same in the movie too, where diba, the dad gives qualities in like goodness,
Mm-hmm.
and in
Mm-hmm.
essence, that goodness is really coming from conduct. And I guess I wanted to mention too, like Philippians 4:8, right? It's a good ano ba? Not reference, but like it's a good kind of checklist on like, in terms of conduct, like parang are these things that are just true, pure, lovely, good report, right? Na parang it even in the movie, they literally talk about all these qualities, and yun na parang if that's something that, parang if it fits the bill, basically, 'di ba? Why
Yeah.
not? So parang yeah, like as Snow White or as Rachel Zegler, I think it goes back to like the importance of having like parang being grounded in all
Mm-mm.
these things so that yung what comes out of you really shines through, I want to say.
Mhm.
And then like I mean in the topic of beauty, since I mean 'di ba parang yun din yung sinabi natin of finding the meaning of true beauty. I think it's very self-explanatory naman then with Snow White that at the end of the day it's also parang being the fairest.
Yeah.
The mirror acknowledged it at the end then na parang while you are the most beautiful, or I don't know the exact words, I'm paraphrasing. Parang Snow White has something in her na parang it's
Yeah.
beautiful on the inside. So um yeah, parang for Samuel 16:17 and Proverbs 31:30 would be like some good reference verses on that na yeah, it's more than just, you can be the most beautiful or the most talented actor actress out there. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's really what's in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ganda nun, ang ganda
yeah.
ng passage that you brought up. I believe it's for Samuel 16:7 nga. Na parang, what do you call this?
Yeah.
Um, Man looks to the outward image, but God looks at the heart. So,
Mhm.
Mm.
um, and I think in the movie, I like in the movie and even in the original, I think that's really the the main premise here. It's really a story about good versus evil. How how
Yeah.
sometimes evil can come in and they would have and evil will try to convince you that what is important is the outward appearance. Evil will try to convince you that beauty is more important. Where the truth of the matter is, the true beauty comes from within. Your personality, your kindness, your compassion,
Your
your
character.
your character, your desire for justice. These are all things that are true. And I think one thing that was really shown in the film is the idea that the evil queen looked at being fair as something from the outer perspective, from what you look like.
Hindi.
Being the
Yeah.
fairest of them all meant that she was evil. But and even the mirror says that in the end,
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
towards the
Mm-hmm.
end.
that the true fair, most fair is Snow White because of what's in her inside her. I forgot the
Mm-hmm.
exact quote.
Exactly.
Basically, yung heart niya. So, yun nga, as like the verses have been saying, and it's actually aligned to what the movie is also saying, is that yun nga, it's not beauty, ergo fairness, it's not skin deep, it's not what you see on the outside, but yung fairness and beauty is actually found yung sa heart ng person. Like, are you a person who has these virtues, these
Mm-hmm.
qualities? How do you treat people? How do you live with people? Is it in a loving,
Mm-hmm.
kind, gracious way, and so on? So, yun nga, deceptive masyado yung outer appearance, eh. And that's the main idea, um, which actually
One
aligns.
might not even, yeah, one could even like not limit it to like necessarily, like, say for example, beauty in terms of just like your face. Like in a lot of ways you could say that the impoverished state of the nation was because of other beauty, so to speak, that the evil queen was also trying to collect,
Mm,
like riches, wealth, and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like dito din sa First Peter chapter 3, diba? Your beauty should not come from outward adornments such as elaborate hairstyles or wearing
Yeah.
of gold jewelry or fine clothes. It should be from your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle spirit, and a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's. And
Yeah.
in a way, like that too was shown in the film din, diba? Na parang even in the simplicity of the life that they were living, they were still able to
Right.
be kind and be gentle. And so it wasn't in the having of things either, or these otherworldly temptations, that they found true beauty.
Mm-mm. Whereas the queen actually sobrang exemplifying it because like, di ba, sobrang daming
Mm-mm.
jewelry niya. She had the finest clothes. She had all the jewelry, the great big castle and everything. And all her guards were all blinged up as well. Di ba? So
Actually,
parang
Yeah.
it is all very exterior presenting.
but no, I deserve this. Actually, that's
Wait,
really my
what?
problem with Snow White. At the end, I realized, wow, she sounds so entitled.
So
Exactly.
it's like
And,
I
like,
think
if
the
the
problem with the depiction is that she was espousing the right value, but
it's all about her, eh.
her ano, the way she or the way her character was written was it
Mm.
didn't feel like she's genuinely um
Or I don't know if it was
fulfilling.
how she was written, or rather it how the direction of the film ended up, because she could have
Yeah,
been
it could be
written
that.
better, but like the things that they cut off or weren't shown in the film made it so not we're not able to see that journey, I guess.
Like
Perhaps.
yung
Yeah.
nga, she kept saying kasi parang I need to do this. This is what my father left me. Parang blah blah blah. So in the end, rather than she's doing it for the people, doing it so that there will be justice in this world, it ends up sounding like I need to do this because ito iniwan ni daddy, eh. So parang ganun yung dating. And if the evil queen was
Well,
not evil, it will just really sound so entitled.
it
Naging
it's it
COO siya,
works
oh
it
no.
works out it works out because the queen was evil.
It works
So
out that because the queen was evil. But at the same time,
Exactly.
we go back to the problem where the queen we know is evil. We are told she is evil, but it is not shown how evil.
Yeah, except for the part where she's trying to kill a little girl. So I guess that is quite
Yeah,
evil
except
in
for that.
itself. So interesting things lang to add on as we draw to a close. We'll get some final thoughts and whatever, but like just some things I wanted to put in. Yung sa original Snow White, she was even younger. Like she wasn't even 14. So in the cartoon, the Disney cartoon, she was like 13, 14.
13, yeah.
So she was a very naive girl. If you're thinking like, how can she be so dumb as to accept? Well, she was living in a forest by herself at 13. So
Mhm.
medyo parang okay, she's young. She's super young. And in the fairy tale version, she was even younger. She was 7. So
My
like
gosh, 7.
I didn't know that.
yeah, she was 7. And she grew up in the forest. So like from 7 to 10. So she was there for like a couple of years. So if you're gonna be like, oh, why was she so stupid as to trust the peddler or the witch? Which she was, she wasn't the witch. She was a traveling peddler. She disguised herself in a less evil looking outfit. You know. so so yeah, she's like, oh, it's an adult selling me something.
According
Should
to
be fine.
according to
Mhm.
to the internet, Snow White in the 2025 film was of legal age.
So the question is that American legal or I don't
So 2021. So she was legal.
Philippine law
So
legal?
she was legal to have a boyfriend. Na hindi hindi statutory.
Oo nga, tama. Tama yung question ni John kasi maraming pwedeng legal.
yeah.
But
I
But
even
did
mean,
you guys know the age of consent in the Philippines is 16?
used to be lower
I think in South
before.
Korea
Yeah,
it's
I
used to
know,
be
right?
less.
lower.
Used to be lower before. Kaya nga okay na ako sa 16 kasi doon sa dati.
May 13 ata somewhere.
That was before.
12
Yeah.
ata.
Previously,
12
yeah.
ata or 13.
Actually, it was lowered. It used to be 21. It's now 8 for like marriage.
Oh, for marriage. Akala ko just general consent.
Well, in general, it's 18. But I don't know.
Hindi.
There are a lot of
No,
specifics.
In the Philippines, it's 16.
it used to be 12 years. Now it's 16.
For
In
for
Nigeria it's
marriage,
11.
good lord.
Hindi
Meaning
pa
to
fully
say,
developed
she
yung mga
is
prefrontal
imagine no, so
cortex
at
din.
12 she is able to say yes to sex at 12.
But
They,
not
that
to.
not anymore. It's now 16. At least it's 16 now, not 12.
I still think it's.
I'm not saying that
Too
it's
young.
I'm not saying that it's right, but it's better.
Well, I suppose
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all we can ask for.
better is all we can ask for at this in this world we live in. So,
But anyway, Snow
anyway,
White's naivety.
Snow White's naivety is therefore explained because not every 13-year-old or not even in current days, like even an 18-year-old, we don't know
Yeah.
how mature they are mentally or whatever. Like people still get conned even at 60.
So may
Diba?
comment
Yeah.
may comment
I'm a
tayo.
Nigerian prince or whatever.
Sabi ni Oscar, gising daw
Open-minded ka ba?
Marvel.
Gising
Gising
naman
siya.
ako.
Joke lang.
Hello?
But yeah, I mean, like
Tapos,
even seniors get conned, right? So
Yeah.
AC Care said feminist empowerment. Yeah, sure. No white but not white. It's okay. 7 CGI dwarves. No, no. Where's my usual dwarf actors? Where's the funny little men? Where's Peter Dinklage? In fact, Peter Dinklage is the reason why they did get to hire 7 dwarf actors.
Yeah.
he was key in removing that on the table, for
Yeah.
better or for worse.
Unfortunate.
Was he in the Kristen Stewart one?
No, I don't know.
No. I don't
Because of
remember.
the typecasting of dwarf actors as dwarves, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
his complaint. But sometimes, what do you want us to cast, no? Full size people as dwarves? That feels like even worse.
That's more offensive.
Yeah, it should be.
I think
But anyway, parang ako personal opinion ko, I'm pretty sure there are other ano ba, what's a political way of saying dwarfs?
short people.
Like
Well, it's
there
just
are a lot of them who might be willing to play a role in a major movie.
Yeah, that's
Like
there
why
don't
were
ask
that's that
that.
there were.
actually.
That's really the issue.
Yeah.
Because like
That's actually
the
Weird lang
why.
talaga na
actor
may isa.
the actor that played Quig, the one with the master of the crossbow. He's obviously a man of short stature, and I'm sure he knows other actors who are of short stature that would be
For
willing to play the
sure.
dwarves, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I actually saw like a dwarf holding a sign. Like you see a lot of things on reels, and he was like, "Dinklage, I wanted a job."
I
So
think
it's like, oh
I think like this. This is my thinking. If there's a dwarf character, when I mean the character is really dwarf, then it's okay to go ahead and cast someone who has short stature.
Yeah.
But to let's say for example, we made this character dwarf because the actor is dwarf. I mean, that's weird. That would be weird. And
yeah.
maybe we can cast dwarf actors in regular roles. That's fine as well. So I don't see a problem where
Yeah.
it's becomes it becomes an issue.
Oh.
Also,
I
these
didn't
are
read
not even
it into
regular
this post,
dwarves.
so I can't comment.
Also,
Yeah, it's
these are not
okay.
So the
even
thing,
dwarves like dwarf men. They're magical dwarves. They're literally dwarves. Who are you gonna cast as magical dwarves? Real, life-size men? I mean,
no, I honestly thought they were going to cast children to be dwarves.
Wait, that would
Well,
be
that
cute.
that that would have been a workaround actually.
Cute yun.
Like just yeah, like people who are just naturally short.
Or like
Because I mean,
include
if you look at it,
women
Dopey
in that.
looks like Dopey looks like a
kid.
child.
Yeah.
Like I was like, he looks like a child.
I mean, if the problem was that, I mean, they casted, I think mas problematic pa nga na in Lord of the Rings, their dwarf character Gimli was casted by the tallest actor they could find.
Yeah, because he looked like a dwarf
Don Reese
face value
Davis looks like a dwarf
because of
face
his
value, but his height is
face
he's taller
value.
than everybody else.
He was the tallest. I
Like
was like, well, you know what? Maybe you should have done just practical stunting. Anyhow, so how do you guys want to finish this?
I think
What are your,
I
I know,
think going back or to
practical wisdoms?
practical wisdom. I think what I think the problem what I think is what the writers of Snow White is that more than just the fighting the injustice. It's really about a battle between what is good and evil. What is considered what are what are the characters that are actually precious versus what are the characteristics that evil people, those who are corrupted, think are important, which are not really important. So we look at the evil queen's character, and all she sees is the outward appearance. And in this Snow White film, also the jewels and the status, those are all things that are of the outward appearance. Whereas we have Snow White, the character who is about kindness and compassion and fairness. He might be naive, but it comes from a lack of experience. But eventually, you see that people are supposed to be drawn to her because of her that character.
Mhm.
Parang in a sense, it gives hope, and I think that's the thing that I think a lot of ways that the film kind of that is the more important story rather than, oh, she needs to be a girl boss to liberate the people.
Right.
yeah. For me, I
Ladies, what do you
think
think?
that there is a really good way. How do you put this? Like another way that the same idea can be framed is that the good and evil is portrayed in the ideation that like the evil queen, evil people have the world revolving around themselves. So they think they are entitled to everything and everything is for their benefit. Well,
Wala yung audio mo.
Oh,
Oh,
I think her internet might have died as a whole.
Hello? Ah,
and
So,
share with others.
oh, I think it's is it coming back?
it came back for a brief second.
yeah.
Ah, uh-oh.
So we'll come back to
So
her. Let's
when Eri returns,
Hello.
yes, hello, hello. You kind of disappeared for majority of that. Hello?
still having a bit of technical problems. Um, I guess we'll move to Velmuna while we figure out what's happening to Eri, if you don't mind.
Final thoughts.
Yes,
Um, ano ba? Just wait for it on Disney Plus.
that is a very practical point.
It's the most practical. But yeah, I think, it's a good reminder too kasi for me personally, parang watching Snow White, right? I had this like preconceived opinion that I wasn't gonna like it. But then parang I did take some time to kind of, like let it sit and then think about it nga from a more biblical perspective. So, regardless of how seemingly terrible and quote unquote woke a movie could be, there are things that we can learn about, God and how we can apply his words in these things that we watch. So yeah, try to do that next time you go see a movie. And then yeah, I think the big thing for me talaga is in both the PR of the movie and the movie itself, it really boils down to our actions. And, parang people are looking at us in how we conduct ourselves. And it's worthwhile to think about, parang kind of audit your own conduct and see how else it can be improved so that you're truly, representing what you believe in and what you stand for well.
Hmm.
Ano, just to add lang, be open to criticism. Open to feedback.
Yeah.
I
Am I
think
back?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
you're
you're
back
back.
na.
Okay.
okay, so yeah.
Where
So
did I
sorry,
cut off?
Eri. You got cut off through majority of what you were saying. You'll have to
Okay.
repeat.
I was basically saying that I felt like good and evil was portrayed in how the evil queen was very individualistic. She felt like the whole
Right.
world revolved around her and she was entitled to everything and everything served her. While Snow White in a lot of ways was focused on other people. Like what can I do for other people? How can I help like other people in their lives? And so she listened to them. She got to know each one of them because she thought each of their lives was important. And so even if I felt like things could have been done as to the storytelling of it, that fact was still carried throughout the movie, in that she was always
Hmm.
looking towards what the self can do for others. And I feel like we can also reflect the same in our own lives and in how we see things.
Right.
Like, is this something I'm doing for just for my own personal benefit, or is this something that I think is for the greater good or for God's will?
Sounds good to me. I guess for me, okay, I guess ako din lang yung last na. Unless may add-on ka pa, John. No? John, as in, not John, like John there. Okay.
I was waiting for you. Go, go.
Oh, well,
I'll just close afterwards. If I have any
sige.
other thoughts.
So, okay, so I guess my concluding thoughts about the movie is that there were a lot of things like internal external learnings that I had. So internal is like intrinsic to the movie itself, quality of the movie, which is the movie was fun. It was actually fun in a lot of specific points, despite all of the things we're saying like, oh, it could have been better here. It's a bit half baked. La 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 la. So as Belle mentioned, watch it on Disney Plus. It is something I would enjoy on a Disney Plus background, or tara mag live action. Let's do like a live action day or binge or whatever. Throw it on there. I wouldn't mind it being on the playlist because it does have a lot of good musical sequences. Um, and aside from that, like the visuals of the movie, the dwarves for me hit or miss, but a lot of the other visuals were okay naman yung quality. So those are the feedback I have on the movie itself. It definitely does not merit its new low rating and scoring. So externally to the movie, um, yeah, definitely there's a lot of learning that could be had regarding, I know, the actors involved, the people involved, and I would say like there's a lot of yung sa actors mismo, like, oh, what are the words we say? So definitely like the things we say in public and even in private, I would say. Like the words you speak to yourself, the words you speak to others, these have to be aligned um, with your beliefs properly, but you have to do it with wisdom. I think is the mature way to do it. So like I may or may not agree with, for example, Rachel Zegler's political leanings, but regardless, I would say whatever my leanings are or my values are, I should do it in a appropriate and wise manner, in a respectful manner to engage people, diba? So like maybe in her case, could she have promoted, let's say, her pro-Palestine comment? Maybe she should have kept it out of the PR of the Disney movie first, and once it succeeded, then she has a stronger platform to do her pro-Palestine commentary, whatever, so on, right? So something like that. There is like a long-term benefit to applying tempering your word, right? It can pay off when applied at the right time and a different time. So, yung, yeah, it's yung conduct natin or the way we behave in society, with others, and with ourselves in more intimate settings. It definitely has to be something which we refine and which we apply um, good virtues to, not just to signal it, but actually live out these good virtues. Like we have to be actually like, are you actually kind? Why are you kind? You look into that. You want to be more genuine and but you have to do it in a way which applies with hindi lang yung just announce. So and that also aligns with what we see in the movie itself, as has been mentioned. Like Snow White herself, acting or plot aside, actually espouses a lot of good internal values and qualities, a lot of caring, kind values and qualities. So yun.
Okay, so with that being said, I think just in the movie, and it's kind of a hot take, then definitely agree on. Of us can agree. Um, when you are, uh, when you are representing a movie, actor in a movie, it also represents. It also represents. How do you put it? How you are represents the movie itself as well. And in a way, we have to be mindful of who we are represents the organizations that we are involved in, or the things that we did. So let's say for example, and this is just an example. Let's say for example, I'm part of a charitable organization and I'm one of the heads. If I do something wrong, it also reflects badly on the charitable organization, even if the charitable organization has nothing to do. In that manner, I think um, is where as well, Rachel Zegler is still young. She's 23. She can learn from her mistakes. There will be studios to pick her up later because she's not a bad singer, not a bad actress. She's actually pretty good. She just needs to learn to temper herself, and she can learn from that. That I think all of us should also learn from that idea. What we say and what we do is a reflection of the people around us and the organizations and as Christians we represent who Christ is. As an individual, I represent who my family is, who are the people that I associate with. Because if I'm like this, then the people I associate with are probably the same. That's really how I have to think about that in that regard. And I'm not saying that we should always, oh no, I have to be so mindful and think of what other people and please them. No, the idea is just that we should encompass the kinds of personality or character that kindness, compassion, these good and like what Vel mentioned earlier, or eight, kinds of thoughts and uh these these characters should just come out. These are the things that we should show, and we don't have to be thinking of how it will please others, but it will of by obviously people will be attracted to those kinds of, as you can see in the movie, people are attracted to the kind of qualities that has even in the old film. So I guess that's one perspective. The second perspective that I said in the film itself, and there was something that I forgot to mention that I want to raise, was they removed the song "Someday My Prince Will Come."
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the idea because they feel like it's outdated. It's like depending on the man. But when you look at it at a bigger perspective, "Someday My Prince Will Come" um, refers to someone waiting for a savior, for a redeemer, right? Because she is in a position where she is stuck in the castle, and I want to be I need a savior, I need a redeemer, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's not a bad thing to want that, whether you're male or female, right? And so someday my prince will come comes off to me as an idea of me needing Jesus. Someday my prince will come, someday Jesus will come and take me out of wherever I am and bring me into his kingdom. Which is in the sense, if you watch the original Snow White film, when Snow White is brought to the princess kingdom, you see that the kingdom is like in the heavens, like there's gold and whatnot. So it just gives that idea that it's like Jesus taking her to heaven. And so and I think that's not a bad thing. Um and at the end of the day, the story really is about good and evil. That although evil may triumph for now, but at the end, the victory is still with good. It's still with Jesus. It's still with God. No, it's not going to be with the evil queen, because in the end, even in the original animated film, the dwarves came after the queen, and then the queen, if I remember correctly, fell off the cliff or something, and died. And so in this film, she got absorbed into the magic mirror. I don't know how that works, but either way, she dies. She dies by magic. And so the idea is that we can gain power through many means, and we can even use magic as a way to gain power, because magic does not come from a good place. No, in the end, it has to come from a good place. And in this case, you know, in the end, good triumphed over. So we always should have hope in that, and always remember that the kind of character, like kind of fairness, is not about the outside appearance, but what's inside. I think everybody can agree with that. I think one of the things that also helped Snow White, even in the original or in this movie, that Snow White had companions talk to her, to help her, to support her. I think it's also important for us as individuals to have that kind of support system. So that's why we actually here encourage being part of small group or part of a support group that is there to help you out, but also to give you feedback, if you do something that's not quite right. And so, yeah. Do you agree, John?
Yes, and also to receive feedback when we're not doing things quite right.
So, with that being said, if you guys who are listening, or if you share this to your, we do actually suggest that you join us here in Level Up. So we are also a support group, a support system that is here to, we are here to enjoy movies, play games, and whatnot. But we're also here to support each other so that we can uh, push ourselves to become better, and hopefully we can push ourselves towards Christ likeness.
Hmm.
With that being said, somebody should post a link to our Discord. You can join us on Discord. We're usually just there hanging out, watching movies, playing games, etc. You can also join our. We also have a Facebook group level. It's also with the same name, Level Up Game Night. Or you can message us main Facebook page, Level Up Game. So it's been fun. I don't know about you guys. It's been fun. I enjoyed our time together discussing this film, and hope to see you again next month. Bye.
Hmm.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.